All right, ladies and gentlemen, there are those times when you start upon a new journey, and part of the new journey is for us is welcoming new individuals into the fold who start to work with us. We don't get them very often. We don't get them very often, but I am so proud to introduce you to this one because we all feel like it represents a turning point in Pac Stereo, and it represents a turning point in all of our lives to finally have someone to help and work with us. So first of all, let me give you Omari Bakari. Let him tell you about what he's got going.
Yes, thank you, Mario. I'm excited about being here working with Vic and Mario with the morning show. My little segment is called Morning Java and a Joint because that's why I want to get up, get my coffee going, a good joint, but the topics, always won't be on cannabis and marijuana. Like this morning, I want to talk about historic East Towson, one of the oldest black communities in the state of Maryland. It was founded in 1865. And all of the descendants and the founders of this community came from a nearby plantation, the Hampton Plantations, which is approximately 5 miles away. Recently, I've been working on a project with them, and the organization NISHA, the Northeast Housing Improvement Association, under the leadership of Nancy Goldring, they have been developing a plan to create a trail that connects the Hampton Plantation to historic East Towson, and the campaign is called Mapping the Road to Freedom. So after working with this organization, I discovered that almost every state has, in the South particularly, or below the Mason-Dixon line, have these communities that are struggling to survive, that people are holding on to the land, and a lot of this property is prime real estate.
So I just want to make sure, because when you first brought this to me, Omari, historic East Towson, these are communities founded by free slaves.
Yes.
Who today, their ancestors are now being impacted because it's being recognized.
Yes.
That they were founded by free slaves.
Yes.
And that involves some money.
Involved money.
And government.
All that. And a lot of these people, the Freedmen Bureau failed a lot of these people and their communities.
Wow.
And the development of their communities. And with all that, these communities continue to thrive. They've owned their own lands. They've built businesses there. One of the things that, the state of Maryland had what was called the Doctrine of Exclusion, and what it said was any Negro, their children, nor their children's children could ever participate in the wealth of the state of Maryland. Well, so we knew.
Say that again. Wait a minute. I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah, so
but that was a big deal to me. The Doctrine of Exclusion.
The Doctrine of Exclusion, which was written in 1638, said that, and it was written by the colonizers of the state of Maryland. They made a decision early on that black people could never participate in the wealth of that state. The doctrine read, no Negro, their children, nor their children's children could ever participate in the wealth of the state of Maryland. Well, what we discovered, so we knew that document existed, but we never seen it applied until we started working with the historic East Towson community. One of the descendants of the Hampton Plantation donated a parcel of land to what's now known as Goucher College. Well, Goucher College has what they call the Hallowed Ground Project. And one of the first things that they did with this project, they sought to change the wording on the deed that said, no African, their children, nor their children's children could ever own this land. And this was the family was the Ridley family. So, we're discovering, we call it the corpus delicti, the body of evidence of what went on with these people once they were no longer enslaved by these plantation owners, and they began to develop and carve out a quality of life that, was suitable for the change that they were now going. self-sufficient. They owned their own businesses. Um, the first school still exists in that community that was built. Is now a community center. The oldest church still exists in that community. As a matter of fact, Nancy Goldring is a descendant of the guy that built the first church there. So there are descendants still living in this community from this plantation.
Now, what you were explaining to me is that, and this is one of the things that we have to give some homage to, because some people get very cynical. But let's just give it a moment, maybe, to put the cynicism aside. The white residents within this community are making an effort to recognize the black contributions. And you were telling me, in terms of the local community leadership, they're participating in programs for Juneteenth and other things for the future, where hopefully we'll get a chance to even go out and cover some of that.
Well, we're looking forward to that. So I think one of the things that's particularly interesting about this community, Nancy Goldring is one of just the sharpest sisters I've ever met. She's a great thinker, a great speaker, a great leader. She's provocative, innovative. She would be like an Angela Davis on steroids. I would, if I had to describe her and the impact she has. But one of the things that's happening to these communities across the South is that they're all under attack. They're all under siege. It's either by the Department of Transportation wants to run a highway through the community, or the land is suitable for some type of resort, much like Bruce Beach. And in this case, they just fought off a developer who wanted to build like a 60-unit low-income building in the middle of this community. So it went to court. They fought it out in court, and they won. And so the alternative was, so now what would you do with this land? So Nancy suggested, well, let's make a trail. Let's build a trail that connects the Hampton Plantation to historic East Towson. And on that trail, we'll use technology to tell the backstory on how all this came about.
Wow.
They have artifacts still on the plantation. So the Hampton Plantation was known in Maryland. It was, in fact, one of the cruelest plantations in the state. If you had an enslaved person and he needed to be disciplined, you would take him to the Hampton Plantation. All the enslaved ancestors on the Hampton Plantation wore iron collars around their neck. And if they became troublesome, that iron collar would have spikes on it where they would put bells on it. So whenever you moved, these bells would go off. Now, if you can imagine having, and this was the plantation was a dairy, but they also were ironwork. They made iron. So if you can imagine what all that was like. So we're trying to capture all of that now. And we want to tell these stories. We want to tell these stories, connect the churches. We know that the churches, the HBCUs, and the museums, we have the data. We can tell the stories, and there's still families around that can share these stories that become that, body of evidence.
So everybody pay attention and be waiting. We're introducing Omari right now. The programming that we're developing with him is going to be forthcoming very shortly. We're even talking about a new version of The Quiet Storm, some of the musical things. So I want to give it up. Once again, give it up, my boy, Omari Bakari.